Hello, this is Pat Lynch, and you are listening to the Career Pathways podcast. Like all the other podcast shows, we bring in some fascinating guests, and today we're going to keep the hits coming with Dr. Irosha Nawarathne. And before we get into our conversation with Dr. Irosha, as she likes to be known, I'd like to introduce everybody that's here on the podcast team, starting with
Gavin.
And
producer Jayson.
And way in the back, who is it? Producer Cheyenne, and she is world famous now. You have to check out her short. You learn everything about her. But
it was booming.
It's booming. Yeah, it's the downloads from all over the world, right, Producer Jayson?
Yeah, and on YouTube, it was our most viewed video of the week. It got 90 views in less than 7 days. So
It goes without A Star is Born.
Yep.
All right. So thank you, Cheyenne, and thank you, Irosha. It's great to have you here. We were laughing. We got communication studies major, business major, and super intimidated by being here with a professor of chemistry. So we're going to try and do our best.
You shouldn't be, but sure.
Well, wonderful.
I'm intimidated being here.
This is all great. We always start with just like a general question. Just kind of tell us about yourself, kind of where, from home, like where you're from, to how did you end up here at Lyon College?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Probably a long
question, right?
Yes.
So I come from Sri Lanka originally, which is closer to India. It's an island. It's its own country. So coming from Sri Lanka, I came to Michigan State University to do my PhD.
Go Spartans.
Exactly. So Pat is also from Michigan State. So we
go green,
go Spartan. Proud to be Spartan. So anyway, after going through the PhD program, I completed it in 2011, and then I went to do a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Michigan, which we don't like, but I went anyway.
I went to Michigan too, so
right. And then from Ann Arbor, I come to Lyon College. How did I end up at Lyon? I think it's mainly because of my husband, who's Taranga Vijayatunga, who's a professor in mathematics here at Lyon, and he was here a year before me, and I was in Michigan, then Ann Arbor. And then when apparently there was an opening for organic chemist, Dr. Grafton, who was a chemist at the time, he emailed me and then asked me if we can talk, and then the interview went, and then I was hired within a week. I was hired here, and I came the next fall. I started in 2014. So that's how I ended up at Lyon.
Oh, wonderful. With your time, as a student, high school student in Sri Lanka, did you at that time want to be an educator, or were your career goals something else?
No. So when I was really young, I wanted to be the president of Sri Lanka, which is a possibility because we are having the third female prime minister in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lankan women are pretty strong, and they're really into politics, I guess. I wasn't into politics. I just liked the prestige of being president.
Live in a nice house.
Right, exactly. But then it didn't work out very well. I don't like politics. So I ended up wanting to become a lawyer after that because I like doing something with talking, I guess. And then, but it was in my language, not English. So bear with me if I don't speak very fluent English. But then I guess when I was in high school or middle school, I was really good at music and my language, which is Sinhala. So everybody thought I should become something to do with it. And then that's what I was thinking. I wanted to be a music professor in Sri Lanka.
What was your instrument?
Oh, I was vocalist. I sing.
Oh, sang.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Right. I did that for a while, even when I went to college and everything, but not as a subject, just as a private study, But either way, so when I went to high school and even middle school, around the time I figured I'm really into science.
Right.
So, and I was good at it. I was good at music too, but I think I started seeing like the application of science better. And then when I went to high school, we did chemistry and physics and biology mostly in high school for my case. So I really was interested in like the plant biology. Like I wanted to do something to do with plant science. So that's where my heart was. And then I went to college with that interest. I was really good at chemistry, not so good at plant biology.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, when I had to decide, I went with chemistry because plant biology has a lot of memorization, and I'm not really, I can't remember anything. People in my classes now, I forget. Like I have to tell them, remind me, otherwise I'll forget. So yeah, not the material necessarily, just I just forget generally. So plant has a lot of names you have to memorize. That wasn't for me.
In Latin and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. But chemistry was always easy because it's just logical and it just come to me naturally.
Right.
So I was like, well, this is what I need to do. And most of the undergrad professors also really recommended me doing chemistry. It's the central science. So without it, you can do plant biology later on. But if you start as a chemist, you can always do other biological sciences.
Wonderful.
And that's what I actually did. In my PhD, I ended up doing application of plant chemistry in plant biology, or the other way around. Like, it was kind of an integration between the two.
What this is the Career Pathways podcast, so we always ask all of our faculty, if you're a chemistry major, what career opportunities are there for somebody that's majoring in chemistry, and just please keep them to the legal, not the illegal, but bad joke.
Right.
But no, I'm a chemistry major. There's, I'm sure, several career opportunities. What are they?
Yeah, so chemistry, as I just mentioned, is the central science.
Yes.
So you can imagine when you're doing a subject like that, you really, not just as a good student, you're learning so many skills as a good student, right? And you also becoming a good citizen. Without chemistry, I think it's hard to make good judgment on your health, good judgment on environment, like all these things, like everything is chemistry. So knowing chemistry or being a chemistry major, for that matter, would really help you regardless of what you do in your career. But if we speak of the specific careers, I guess you can get academic jobs like what I have, or you can get government jobs like in Food and Drug Administration, maybe National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation, even NASA, like any of those. Or you can go all types of industry, including pharmaceutical industry, which is huge and really pays well.
Yes.
And then material science stuff, like any polymer, any plastic you're thinking of, it's all chemistry. Somebody has to make it, and chemists have to analyze it, right? Agriculture, petroleum, food, I mean, anything you name, it's chemicals. So every industry pretty much needs chemists. Even the winery, like, those distillation place, like all those places need chemists too. So anything to do with food, you always need it. So I guess you'll never go wrong doing chemistry.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to become a chemistry major, or at least take a class like introductory chemistry for them.
It's amazing, just when you think of research, and then it's research and application would be the two, and just I think that always people traditionally think research only, but then, like you mentioned, all the areas of application, that's even more than research in many ways.
Exactly. And most of those places do have R&D, like the research and development in all industries and everything. So if you want to go research, you can in chemistry, or you can do more interdisciplinary research.
Right.
Or you could just focus on making material and, doing the same routine kind of job too. It's really up to you.
In your research role, when I was looking at it, it seemed to center around like therapeutics and I don't know if you want to call it like, I'll call cures or therapies like for tuberculosis,
Right.
lung cancer, kind of, and, gosh, it's Texas, and I'm not even going to try that last word. It's, that I'll leave that to the expert.
Okay.
But what guided you into get your interest in getting into this particular area of study?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and a question I like to answer anyway or talk about.
Yes.
So kind of like what I said earlier, from high school, I knew I love plant biology. Like I just like plants, like seeing them and seeing how they're. And then I also liked chemistry, the depth of chemistry, logical part of it, and understanding the molecular level of what's going on around us. So by combining those two was always my passion or my interest, right? So when I want to go to PhD programs, I was looking for research areas that can integrate those two together. Yeah. And that's how I ended up at Michigan State Chemistry, because there were two very, very great research people who were working with plant enzymes. If I use the word enzymes, do you think it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So enzymes are things that make new molecules, things like that in plants or our body, right? So basically, they work with plant enzymes and then make these new drugs.
Right.
So in my case, the person I work with, he, Dr. Kevin Walker at Michigan State, he's still there. And he started with us. He was a very young professor, so we pretty much started together. He was starting his academic career and we were starting our PhDs. So we worked on something called Taxol. That's where the taxase cell transferases come from. Those are enzymes.
Right.
So how Taxol is an actual cancer drug, cancer therapy, which is used for ovarian, breast, and lung cancer, like so many actual. It's probably people call it the most celebrated molecule in the whole world because it's been used so much. Right. Also, it's been researched so much. So we had the privilege to work with that molecule, and how we worked with it is Taxol is made in the Texas plants, like the
cacti.
Pacific yew tree. Yeah, some like Pacific yew tree, like really big ones, and there are some shrubs too. So those yew trees make it using enzymes, right? Like just like our body makes so many things with enzymes. So basically what we do is we look at those enzymes, we modify them genetically, and we make the molecule rather than doing Taxol. Taxol itself is a great pharmaceutical, but at the same time it has so many side effects. It has acquired so much like resistant to certain cancer is resistant to it because we use it a lot, right? So basically we wanted to have something better with less side effects. Right. So what we do is we use those enzymes and modify them in a way that they can make new variations of Taxol, let's say. Like we call them analogs of Taxol. So it was pretty fantastic idea because you're taking the lessons from nature and apply them in labs to get something you really want. And that, I think, is what we all should do because, nature is the smartest of all. And if we can take lessons from nature and then do them or manipulate them the way we like to, then we probably will get great products as well. So I loved that concept. It's called biocatalysis because you're using biological molecules or biological things like enzymes to do the catalysis, which is the progression or activation of some reaction, like actual reactions. So you do biocatalysis. So I figured that's what I wanted to do. Even as a undergrad, I've been so fascinated by that area. And I'm like, these are the people I want to work with. And Michigan State had a really great program and two of them were really into that kind of work. So the one I work with was Kevin Walker. There was another professor whom I wanted to originally work with. He in fact started, he has the patent and the innovation for doing Tamiflu, the viral drug, antiviral. So he's the one who very first time made it through biocatalysis. like he's really famous. He's called John Frost. I didn't end up working with him, although I came there because he wasn't a really nice person, apparently. Everybody said, oh, don't work with him. And he actually left the school within like a year after I came to start a company. So I was okay with it. He's back now. He's back at the chemistry. But great scientist, definitely. And the one I work with was very, very great mentor. I still work with him, and we publish, even this year, we published another paper. So, yeah, I'm glad I work with it. And I'm also really glad that I got this concept of using biocatalysis or lessons from nature to apply in the lab.
Has that been prevalent for years, or is it more considered an emerging field in terms of, because
biocatalysis?
Yes.
I think it was relatively new at the time, but then nowadays I think most people use it.
Right.
So, for example, Bristol Myers Squibb, which is the company that had the patent for Taxol and made billions of money, they started doing biocatalysis of Taxol. So, fun thing is, from our lab, anybody who got a PhD or anything master's, they got hired immediately. Even for us, like any of us could have just gone there. But I like being an educator. That's all I wanted to do. Always wanted to be a lecturer at a university, especially back home. And then since I was here, and I just wanted to continue my passion. But it was pretty fun. So biocatalysis is now very prevalent. People do it a lot. In industry.
My wife, she went through a cancer journey and years ago, and what I remember was that the drugs was almost like a cocktail, almost referred to it as a cocktail, and and I can't even tell you what it was that they, all the different things, but it was scientific, but it was so imprecise, and you when you're a patient, or the husband of a patient, you want, it's like you want precision answers, solutions, and it just wasn't there.
Exactly.
Is that still that's always the state of cancer treatment?
I would say people are trying to go away from just regular cocktail medicine for anybody, right? And rather do more personalized medication. I think that would be great. And research we used to do, or even the research we are doing right now, those will really help, because we are making better drugs. And it might be better for you, it may not be better for another person. So being able to do personalized therapy or pharmaceutical would be the way to go in the future. I think it's already starting. But I don't know how much, in fact, it is.
The kind of shift to the classroom, as far as one thing that you look at, you take great pride in terms of that the research that you do here at Lyon, and bringing students in to kind of help you with the research. I know we talked that I manage student employment, but you have your own grant, and you're kind of, you hire your own students, foster, mentor, help them grow. Can you kind of talk a little bit about just kind of what you're doing in terms of in the lab, and how it marries up with your ability to teach and help students?
Yeah. So you're talking about the employment versus the experience?
Both. Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's because it's more than it's more an important. This is research. Because students they've been able to get published. They've been able to have these valuable experiences that can lead to REUs and lead to graduate school. And so on and so forth.
Right. So the students, they generally either approach me if they're interested in chemical research or drug discovery, for that matter.
Right.
Or I might have students ambassadors, I would call them, the current students in my research group. It's a big group. I think we have 12 right now. So we always have 8, 10, 12, something like that, depending on the year or the semester. But those guys act like ambassadors, and they are very good at talking to new people, especially if there is a really promising student. they will talk to them, and then they come and talk to me, and then we'll recruit them and go from there. So students never approach research as a way of getting money. It's mostly wanting to do it for the career advancement, right? Or for the curiosity, for that matter. But after they do come, and if I have a grant, I will pay for them. And it's not like in the summer they get paid for the hours. In the semester, it's not like a whole lot of money.
With a team of 12, that's a pretty a pretty big team. So starting out the semester, how do you approach that? Do you divide up work like that? Okay, we need to. It's like speaking as a somebody who's spent I spent my one class that I had to in the lab, and then I ran. But do you have like a research goal? Yes, and then and then each of the students will help in a certain capacity.
That's right.
How can you walk us through how you would structure that from kind of the beginning, and then how do you kind of manage it all the way through?
Yeah, so almost always, like I have very rarely have had a student who would start as a freshman or a sophomore and then didn't want to do research afterwards.
Right.
So it's usually like if you start a freshman, sophomore, junior, even some of them start juniors, those guys continue. And then those continuing students would have a lot of ability, like technique-wise, right? So most of the time, I train my students one-on-one on a certain semester and in the summer. Like summer students are the best, like they get the most benefit out of it because they get to see the whole big picture and do everything and learn. So we take that time, and now that I have trained, let's say I have 5 trained ones, and then when I recruit like another 5 maybe because I have too many interests and it's always, I can't deny. So I always like try to accommodate them as long as they're good students and keeping up with their classwork. So when I do that, I do train them one-on-one, like all the continuing as well as new. But I also let them shadow the previous students.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works. So basically, in our lab, we have big major projects, 3 major projects, I would say right now. Rifamycin one, which is the tuberculosis, like that kind of antibacterial. Then the lung cancer one. And then we also work on sucralose, the artificial sweetener, and trying to see how it affects the bacteria. Yeah, Splenda.
Splenda. Okay, yes.
So those 3 are the major projects right now, but we also have like other smaller ones, which each person or maybe 2 individuals would take it. But either way, like I will give them, like when I recruit new people, I will give them an overview of all the projects and just give them like glance of everything and then ask them which one they prefer to do. And then it's usually like, let's say they decide to do lung cancer one, then I'm going to try to match them up the day or the hours they're working in the lab with someone who's already continuing. Right. And there are times like right now on Mondays, I don't have anybody who's continuing. It's all like new students. So I will be training them from scratch, like from nothing starting. But there are also like Wednesdays, like just right now they're working in the lab. There are 5 of them. So 2 of them are older students, like not older meaning old, but they've been continuing.
Junior, seniors.
Right. Oh, sophomore. One is a sophomore.
Okay.
She was a freshman last year. So these guys, continuing students, will train someone else. Like there is a junior in the lab right now, and there is a senior continuing and a sophomore continuing. Those 2 can help the junior because they know a lot about what's going on, and they both were summer research students and really great students. So depending on what it is, they can always help each other. But then there is like also another group doing something else, and they're like high schooler, and she's only a 11th grader, and then also a freshman.
Right.
And 11th grader being a summer student. So she knows what she's doing, and she can teach anybody, really. It doesn't matter. So I don't worry about like what age they are or what whether they are like old or not or kind of thing. It's about how much research or technique they know. So if they know this technique, and they could be high schooler or a freshman, they can still teach it to the senior. It doesn't matter. And I don't think they take it personally either, because they're really there to learn the technique. And once they learn the basic technique and how to do things, or use an instrument, things like that, then they are pretty independent. So I always make sure they get the best independent time doing research. They will be reporting to me, and I'll be going and looking at it the whole time, like while they're doing it. And then when they have questions, they will be asking me. But each person has their own target. Just like I have my own target for the semester, they also have like maybe one compound they're making for the whole year, like semester. Because these compounds, it's easy to say, oh, we are just making new compounds, but it takes a lot of work. You have to start the reactions, you have to work them up, purify the compound, test them against bacteria or lung cancer or whatever. It's just a whole lot of work. So by doing one compound, they're going to learn the full process of drug discovery.
And scientific discovery with that compound, you would have to do kind of multiple tests to be able to replicate it. And that all takes time.
And they do it. I don't personally do it.
But,
I just guide them.
I always hear about research that, that takes years. And how do you manage that across? Because, now you have students coming, students going, students graduating.
Right.
How do you, that seems to me to be a challenge in and of itself in terms of how to have the consistency of research, to be able to, because eventually you want, like with lung cancer, there's going to there'll be, is it a pharmaceutical solution?
That's what our plan is.
Yes. Okay. How long do you think that will take from beginning to end, and then how do you manage that across multiple school years?
Yeah. So to answer that, I think as a person who's been in my whole career, I've been doing drug discovery. But those were graduate school or postdoctoral. So we were working with team of scientists, or maybe I had like the full time, and then the other people work with at the same time. But here we are doing the same thing with undergrads. So of course, even for someone who's just in a regular graduate school lab, it would take about, or even industry where you have everything and the professionals, it would take about 15 to 20 years to bring something from the bench to bedside. We call it like bench to the drug. It takes about 20 years generally. But that is the full research. Like it takes, drug discovery has this basic research, which we are doing. And then it has the preclinical, clinical trials, all that. So I started research at Lyon 2015. And then now I am here almost 25. And then if we look at the pharmaceuticals we haven't made anybody who has gone to preclinical yet. But we are almost there, because we already finished the basic research on them, and we have a bunch of molecules that can be pharmaceuticals very soon. We have to just test them with mouse models, and then move on to preclinical, and then go to clinical strategies if we end up getting the funding for it. But so with the undergrads, of course, it's going to take very longer time than usual process. So I would say if you are only going to do it with undergrads, you will probably be looking at extra 20 years, 10 years, which makes sense. But it's not I'm not too interested in the outcome of the pharmaceutical here. I think I'm interested in making new generation of biomedical researchers.
Yes.
Because out of the 54 or so students I have worked with so far, majority of them wanted to continue in research, especially biomedical research. And most of them, they came here to do a medical degree, and then they end up doing a dual degree, MD, PhD, PharmD, PhD, stuff like that. And they're continuing it now. Or some of them came for MD, and then they decided, no, I like PhD, I like being in the bench, and I want to be a chemistry PhD student. So we have those too. but most of them end up doing dual degrees or something to do with pharmaceutical sciences, which I think is a great encouragement for me as a mentor, because that tells what we are trying to do is working, and that's my goal. Like if somebody asks me, what's your goal for research, it's not, yeah, great, we will eventually have some pharmaceuticals and a lot of publications and things, but that's not really my product. My product is the mentoring or the inspiration of the next generation to do it, because they're going to do it better than we do.
Yes.
They will be going to like different places. Like right now I have one who's a PhD MD, and she's doing great things with the next level of like science, Jordan Trent. And then there are a few others who are like the last 2 weeks ago when I talked to someone like Emerson Smith, she went to UAMS and she's almost done, and she's going to be a pathologist.
Yeah.
Like pathology is usually the hardest thing to get to in after medical school, and then she wanting to do that, I think is a kind of like a indirect effect of doing research, because pathology is so much critical thinking and analyzing, and that's great. And all my students, I can name all of them, they all have some part of this inspiration with them even to this date, like after years of doing research. So I think that's kind of cool.
With your research, have you or your students been able to incorporate AI at all to accelerate any of that, or does it really, it's just something that doesn't apply or doesn't help?
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Just that. So when we say students do this research, they're mostly doing hands-on. The design of it, I have to do, because drug discovery, that kind of chemistry is little too advanced for someone at undergraduate level to put their brain around, right? They understand it totally. Like once we design it and tell them what's going on, they can do small changes. Like a lot of students come and tell me this reaction doesn't work. Should I go this way or that way? That kind of decisions they can take. But like a decision like, should we use AI? How do we use it? That kind of thing, I think it should come from me.
Yes.
And I haven't made my mind about using AI or not.
If it'll help.
And I don't even know how to do it. So I guess until I learn it, maybe we won't really use it. But there might be a faster way of doing like more computational type of simulations, and then figure out like what best is need to be done, right?
Now, we have an award winner amongst us, yes? All right. 2025 Rising Star Award from the Women's, I guess the Chemical Society, yes?
American Chemical Society.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the award and what you were recognized for?
Yeah, so I believe, so this award is American Chemical Society, first of all, is the largest chemical society in the world. So it's a big deal. And I didn't think
You're a big
didn't think I'll even be competitive enough. So I was really happy that I got an award. And I think they're recognizing the best women in the chemistry around the world, like because this is international society. And then they're recognizing them for something unique about them. So in my case, it's probably, I guess it says, I think the award says it is to recognize the, what did it say? Recognize the scientific contributions to the scientific enterprise, something like that in that regard. But anyway, so if we think about why they would pick me, I guess the only thing I could think of is I have been doing so much research that's pretty high stakes, although we do it at Lyon, and I do it with students, and it is been very fruitful. So we have very good publications and things came out of research. That's one thing. And of course, it's chemistry, so that makes sense. And then also I have done a lot of pedagogical development in organic chemistry and other classes, and published with American Chemical Society journals too. I think that may have been a big factor, because, being educator and disseminating the information, how you do best practices, that kind of thing is very helpful. So the other thing might be the mentoring, like I have mentored more than 54 students or so right now. And then that's only my research group. But then when I think about all the undergraduate students I have influenced, I'm sure that's a big lot, right? And then, I think that may have been a big part of it too. So I think where I come from, like Lyon College, has a lot to do with it because this is a primary undergraduate institution and it's very rare to find people who would do this kind of research with undergrads and then being able to do it really well, get a lot of grants, get their own funding program. And then also I pretty much built the infrastructure for the drug discovery at Lyon. So that may have played a little big role. But I don't know why. I'm glad I got it.
Oh, so this wasn't you didn't submit or anything like that. This is just recognition.
No. This was I was nominated by Dr. Grafton. He's the one who asked me to do it. Yes. And when he said so, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be considered or competitive enough. And he believed in me, so I thank him for that. But we were neighbors. He understands chemistry.
Yes.
We speak the same language, I guess. So he knew what I do and how much impact it has, I guess, more than I did. So I'm very glad he believed in me and nominated me for this, and I was able to get that award.
Well, it's well earned and well deserved.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Last question: forensic science. We had Dr. Jayson Kennedy in on a previous podcast, and it's kind of a co-curricular course with Dr. Kennedy, Dr. Oliveira, and yourself. Yes,
Dr. Miller.
Miller,
right? Psychologist.
Oh,
Robert Miller.
So there's 4? Oh my, okay. I'm slow. I didn't even that. It just seems fascinating in terms of creating kind of this multidisciplinary course because there's an obvious high interest in forensics.
Yes.
Yeah, and so he kind of approached it as the archaeologist. How your section's coming up soon in the class, yes, for forensics, and
that's correct. Yeah.
And what will you be teaching as far as from a chemist point of view?
Yeah. So I taught that class last fall too with Dr. Oliveira and Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy just joined us, so it's now 4. We used to be 3. But regardless, in chemistry, forensic is a lot of chemistry, because everything you're touching is chemicals, right? So basically, you have chemicals in your body, and then when it's a dead body, they need to test them. So testify them in the courts, all that. So chemists can do it better because they will understand what extent they need to talk about it. And then all this instrumentation, chemical instrumentation, is used to see the where the molecules are, how much it is, all that too. So although I never taught forensic chemistry before last fall, I've been teaching forensic part and taking students to the state crime lab from my instrumentation class. I teach the class instrumental analysis for chem majors and minors. It's a very popular class usually. So I take those students to state crime lab, and they really enjoy that because it's mostly chemistry instrumentation and chemistry involved in there. There is a lot of biology too, like DNA analysis, but it's mostly chemistry.
How would a chemist solve a crime?
Right. So for the benefit of the class, I guess I focus a lot on pharmaceuticals again. I mean, they're not pharmaceuticals. Some can be. There's illegal drugs so seized drugs. Those are big part of chemical analysis. You need to know how much is in there and what kind of drugs are in there. Based on that, there are categories that they will get penalties on and everything, right? And then also trace evidence. Like I said previously, everything is chemistry.
Yes.
So if you're looking at the soil from a murder scene, or like the part of the clothing, like the fabric, or it could be hair, analysis. It could be glass analysis. You can name anything. They're all like chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
So all that chemical analysis has a big role to play in a crime scene. So I guess that's how I would solve
there
it.
You are. Be a detective. I lied. I have one more question.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
This is really off track in some ways. It seems, at least the things I'm reading, is just this increased alarm around forever chemicals.
Uh-huh.
In terms of that, what impact will they have on the human species? That all of us unknowingly, some knowingly, through foods packaged in plastic, all these different things, we're building up this level of forever chemicals in our bodies, or it's in the water, it's in wherever. How as chemists, how do they solve that? What can be done?
So as a chemist, I guess you created the problem, right?
Yes.
Like all these chemicals, they're there.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not pointing a finger, but no. It wasn't malicious or by design,
yeah.
but it just happened.
Yeah, but now, I think it's also the duty of the chemist to kind of clean it up.
Yes.
I don't know if it's possible, because some of these forever chemicals, which are called mostly for the fluorinated compounds, things like that, they're everywhere. And people use them without knowing them in the previous, for decades or centuries. And now getting rid of them would now be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can do much about it. There is a lot of research on it. There is a lot of ongoing, initiatives to remove things and all that. And another problem, these forever chemicals, I think it's getting more and more popular these days, just because there are microplastics everywhere.
Right.
We use plastics almost
everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, we're breathing it as we speak. Right? So basically, we have them everywhere, because all this clothing has fibers that are microplastics too, here and there. So a whole lot of it. And then we're talking about ingesting them and drinking them from plastic bottles, and then also breathing. And these microplastics, they have the ability to attract chemicals towards them. It could be heavy metals if it's coming from ocean.
Right.
It could be forever chemicals if it's in the regular environment or ocean too. So anywhere, they have the ability to attract them. So you're not only getting the microplastic, but you're also getting a bunch of other chemicals with it. So I think that's where the big popularity or the alarming part come from, because forever chemicals have been there forever.
Yes.
People
Hence
didn't care.
the name.
Now they're coming together because of all these microplastics people are consuming every day.
Because I even like an analog solution, I just moved everything possible to glass containers.
Exactly.
How much that'll help?
No, it helps a lot.
But that's the type of things that I just start to think.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Gosh, that's a depressing way to end things.
No, it is not.
It is not?
I think it's we can always put it as a positive thing,
Yes.
because I think even if until the chemist or scientist can fix this issue, like you just mentioned, we can take our own initiatives to reduce the plastic. I mean, I would love to end it this way, because I'm really into conservation and recycling.
Right.
So plastics, we can always minimize the use. We can refuse it. If we don't want a plastic straw, don't just say, I don't want it. I'm okay drinking from the cup, right? Or just refuse to take your own bottle, things like that. So you can always reduce the amount of plastic, refuse it, minimize the use of it, and that would make you less consume microplastics, which will be a less consumption of all these chemicals too. So I think eventually, until people find a great solution, that's probably all we can do.
Yeah, and fast fashion, as far as trying to, have people purchase clothes that are more sustainable.
Yes.
And because, I've just seen these stories about, just all these discarded clothes that I forget what part of the world they end up with, but then they're just they're just lying on beaches and
Yes.
then they're getting washed out to sea, and I'm sure that what happens at that point when they break down isn't
Exactly.
helping
And
things.
it's like micro, and then they can
Yes.
kill the ocean organisms, which will affect the food chain. I mean,
Right.
it's just complicated.
Yeah.
So we may not be able to fix all that issue, but at least we can do our part to reduce it for the future, right?
Yes. Dr. Irosha, thank you so much. You're a treasure. We know really like it's you're we had the OG Terrell Tabbets earlier, and you're kind of the I won't call it the mini OG, but something close to that. It's an awful way to close it out. But again, thank you so much for taking
You're
time.
welcome.
And
thank you
so
for
all of us from the
considering.
team signing off.
Gavin.
Producer Jayson.
Way in the back.
And Cheyenne.
All right. Have Cheyenne got any more profile looks since the podcast went on? We'll say so.
Maybe. We don't know yet. I haven't been able to look, but
Okay. Producer Jayson, as always, where can you find the Career Pathways podcast?
you can find the Career Pathways podcast on 99.97% of platforms. Supposedly the same number of germs that get killed with Germ-X, although we were told by the president of the school herself that is not very accurate. So.
But we stick to it
But we
anyway.
stick to it. We stick to our guns.
Might as well.
But thank you all, and thank you, Irosha.
And thank you again for inviting me. That's great.
Yes, and thank you for listening to the Career Pathways podcast. We'll be back next week with another great faculty member here at Lyon College. So until then, take care. Bye.
This broadcast is sponsored in part by Lyon College and by KILT Studios.